Buenos días, estudiantes. Now we are moving on to Lesson 2 in Estructura Descubre, and the topic is forming questions in Spanish. There are essentially 3 different ways that you can ask questions in Spanish. First of all, I'd love for you to think about the ways that we form questions in English. If you thought the subject comes first and the verb comes second, then you are correct. Please take a minute to look at these 3 pictures. Read the 3 questions the folks in Fotonovela are saying to each other. As you will see, in one instance, you simply say the statement you would say in an affirmative statement and then add no at the end. ¿Te gusta mucho la tarea? No. Second, this conversation, they simply use inflection. ¿Hablas con tu mamá? If you were to say, ¿Hablas con tu mamá?, that is simply an affirmative statement. But if you raise your pitch of voice at the end of the sentence, it then becomes a question. And then the third example, you will see they preface the sentence with a question word. ¿Quién? Let's break this down a little bit further by looking at the 3 ways individually. As we said before, one way of forming a question is to raise the pitch of your voice at the end of a declarative sentence. So a declarative sentence essentially is just a statement like you would say in Spanish or in English. But when writing the question out, you would put the upside down question mark at the start of the sentence and then a regular question mark at the end. So if you were to say, for instance, you work on Saturdays. Ustedes trabajan los sábados. You could do the exact same thing, however, raise the pitch of your voice at the end to make it a question. ¿Ustedes trabajan los sábados? And here's the second example. Carlota is looking for a map. Carlota busca un mapa. To form that into a question, you would simply say, Carlota busca un mapa? Now let's move on to the second way you can form a question in Spanish. This one might be the most difficult because we are used to the subject coming first and the verb coming second. And this is the case when you make a statement in Spanish. However, you can invert the order and bring the verb to the forefront of the sentence and then follow it with the subject. This won't feel quite as natural for us, but with a lot of practice, you're going to get it. For instance, the statement is, Ustedes trabajan los sábados. To form that into a question where you invert the verb and the subject, or switch their order, you would say, ¿Trabajan ustedes los sábados? You still use the inflection in your voice, but you change the word order of the sentence. The next example is, Carlota regresa a las 6. Regresa a las 6, Carlota. So in this sentence, we put the subject at the end. Let me show you one more example of this. Here is a phrase in Spanish. The subject coming first, the verb coming second. María estudia. So if you want to make it into a question, you would put the verb first. Estudia María. So you see María, the subject, came second. Miguel come. Come Miguel. Ana contesta. Contesta Ana. So your formula here is the verb plus the subject and then the rest of the sentence. So, estudia Bill mucho? Last but not least, questions can also be formed by just simply adding a tag at the end. The tag would be no, verdad? So you would say the rest of the sentence the same with the same inflection and pitch, but you would simply add no or verdad at the end. For example, por ejemplo, Ustedes trabajan los sábados, ¿no? Carlota regresa a las 6, verdad. And verdad means right or correct. One last quick note. When you're making a negative sentence where you include no before your verb, you have to use verdad. For instance, ustedes no trabajan los sábados, ¿verdad? Instead of saying no twice. Okay, buena suerte. Let's go practice on Supersite.